Okay, so before I move on, let's take a look at what's been covered so far. First off, showed you what the Collatz conjecture was and how the 3n plus 1 and the n divided by 2 uh, come together to make this sequence of numbers that, if you look at it in the perspective of from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, it does some interesting but almost unpredictable things. But if you arrange it in this sort of fashion, you can see that though it does also continue on to infinity, it is a little bit more manageable, and you can actually get some equations from it, and it's a sort of more simplified way of looking at it. So we're looking at it in the reverse order, going from 1 up, and I showed you the formula here that is used to create the odd numbers, and hopefully you understand that there is only one whole positive integer means of generating an odd number out of this equation. I'm sure you could do some sort of trickery with maybe some fractions or some negative numbers or some combination, and convince this to spit out a number here. But if you try to put that fractional negative number into the Collatz sequence, you won't get any meaningful results out of it. So this applies for all whole positive integers, and it will only generate a single instance of an odd number, and that's all that this does. Then over here, you can see that we have uh, discovered a way to create a formula for a chain of numbers starting at any given odd value, and this chain will go on into infinity and will only create the values in that chain, and nowhere else will those values appear. The 22 here, which follows the 11, will not follow any other number any other odd number. It will only appear in the 11 chain, and every single value has its own chain that it sticks to. So what we're ultimately saying here is that the possibility of there being some sort of trivial loop way out in the vast infinity of the numbers would indicate that since there would have to be an odd number in that loop, at least one odd number, then everything generated from that odd number on, which is an infinite number of values, would not appear in the Collatz sequence. So we would have an infinite number of values that do not fit in this sequence. So let me cover the last thing that I wanted to take care of in this presentation, and that is finding how far away any number is from reaching 1. Now, there are two different ends of the spectrum here. One is going to be really straightforward and easy, and the other is mind-bogglingly annoying. But in order to avoid the mind-bogglingly annoying portion of it, I have just taken a brute force method and thrown a hammer at it to just finish the construction project, and you'll see what I mean here shortly. But the highest number on any given step is going to be this power of 2, and the reason for that is for each instance of the step expanding out, What's applied to this relative location is you'd multiply by 2. There is no n minus 1 divided by 3 happening here. It is just times 2 times 2 times 2, hence the 2 to the power of n. And what that will produce is the absolute highest number on any given step. So, let's say we have a number and we do not know what step it's on. We don't know where it falls in this chain of numbers, or in this column of numbers, I should say. But we do know that it's either going to be the maximum number, the minimum number, which on this one is a 7, just happens to be a 7 there, or it's going to be something between the minimum and the maximum. So what we can do is kind of narrow down the range of where a number is going to fall. And the way we do this, for the maximum number, let's assume that the number that we're testing, which we will call x, is the maximum number on the step. Well, we know that in order to get to that maximum value, we have to apply this, the 2 to the power of n. So this is where the logarithm that I discussed in the first video is going to come into play. We're going to take the log of the logarithm of both sides, so we can work with that exponent. That exponent is the n, and that's what we're trying to figure out. That n will tell us how many steps away the x is from 1. So let me do this. We have log of x equals log of 2 to the power of n. Now, if you remember from the book, let me go ahead and fill this part in. If you remember from the book that I introduced this in the first video, if you take the exponent out from where it is, using the logarithm, this is just in the confines of doing a logarithm, if you take that exponent out, you can put it in front as a number to multiply the rest by. So we have log of x equals n, which was the exponent, times log of 2. Now, if I divide both sides by the log of 2, then I can get that n by itself, and that's really what we want to do here. So let me go ahead and put log of x divided by log of 2 equals n. Now, this works if you are going to assume that the number that's being tested, the x in this case, is the highest number on a given step. The highest number will give you the fewest number of steps to reach 1. So there's one more thing that I need to include here, but let me go ahead and do an example. I can, I believe, overlay this. It looks like I can. Let's say we have, I don't know, 32. We know that 32 is 5 steps away from 1. This is laid out very clearly here. Here's 32. It is 5 steps from 1. So let's go ahead and count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 will bring us to the 1. That's very clear. And the 32 is, in fact, the maximum number on that step. But we don't know for sure that the 32 is the highest number. So we're going to test it, or we're going to just apply it to this minimum number of steps equation. So let me copy this here and put it there, and then fill in this x with 32. So actually, let me add the log of 2 to memory so I can call it up in a second. This is the log of 2, this string of numbers. I'm going to add it to memory here, and then I'm going to clear that out. And I'm going to take the log of 32 and then divide by what is in memory, which was the log of 2, and we will get that nice round number 5. Okay, so what happens if we're testing a 33? Good question. I'm going to leave that log of 2 in memory, so let me clear this out. Let's go 33. Log of 33 divided by log of 2, which is still there, and we get a number that is just a little tiny bit higher than 5. So what this tells us is that it's going to take at least 5 and some change steps. Well, that and some change needs to be turned into a whole number, because you don't take a half of a step when you're calculating the Collatz sequence. So we're going to round up from the 5.04 to just say 6. It's going to take at least 6 steps for 33 to reach 1. Okay. So what about the other end of this? The brain-breaking part. That is the smallest number. The smallest number is not going to fall in the same location. Here it's position 2, position 2, position 2, 2, 2. This is all good so far. And here it's in position number 1. And as you get farther and farther out, it drops farther down because just because of how this is laid out. The higher ends of this field are going to start having more dead ends stacked on top of it. What I mean by dead end is this 3, if you continue on with that chain, you're never ever going to get another odd value from it, simply because it is an odd multiple of 3 producing a bunch of even multiples after that. So you're never going to get an even number that will be in the form of n minus 1 divided by 3 to equal a whole number. It's just not going to happen. So that's going to be a dead end. And some more of these dead end chains crop up, and so the position of the lowest number is going to keep drifting farther and farther down. Now, it may not be immediately under this top. Sometimes it's a little bit farther down, and then a few more steps later, it jumps back up to where the rest of them are. So you can sort of see the problem that's going to arise from this. There's no static equation for finding what the lowest value is, except there is a way to look at it, and I'm going to bring in the original Collatz conjecture function here, going the normal direction, testing a number, a seed number, and reducing it down to 1. For this 2 to the power of n, that is the from the other direction version, a way of saying x divided by 2. So what we need to do is find the other way of saying 3x plus 1. We need to find the equivalent of that. But the problem with doing that is, and that will give an absolute low number, the problem is that when you flip this around to go for the 2 to the power of n, you're going to immediately start dividing into fractions and meaningless numbers. So I'm going to talk about the steps in terms of odds and evens here. So bear with me. If you have the root 1 here and you want to get to the next step, you apply what I call the even function, or the even method to it. You multiply by 2. And that's an even, that's an even, that's an even. And then if you want to keep on top of the lowest value, you now need to apply the odd formula to it, the n minus 1 divided by 3. And then we have the even, and then we have the odd, even, 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 and then odd. So the even step, every single time it is followed by another even. The odd step, however, cannot be immediately followed by another odd. You cannot get a whole number from this 5. If I subtract 1 from it and divide by 3, you're going to get a fraction, and a fraction is meaningless in the Collatz sequence. So what follows an odd will always have to be an even. Now, what follows an odd can be a series of evens, but it's always at the very least going to be one even and some change as a ratio. I'm just going to say and some change because I have not narrowed down an exact figure, and you'll understand why in just a second. So what I am going to do now is show the graph of the log of x divided by the log of 2, and that was this right here. So you can see what's going on visually. And this is from Wolfram Alpha, without which I would have had a lot of trouble making a lot of my computations and graphs and some of my charts and things. So thank you, Wolfram Alpha. Oh man. But there are a few things going on with this that you're going to need to sort of ignore. First off, anything that is a negative value, we don't need. And anything that is a negative value here, well, let me make the box a little higher up. Anything that's a negative value here, we don't need. And this red line that says imaginary, this imaginary part, that's because Wolfram Alpha is very complete. And that is a portion that does not apply to what we're going after here. So what we're left with, I don't really think I can make this comfortable from zooming in, but what we're left with is this graph that slopes off to the right. It will continue going up and to the right forever and ever and ever. So if you go way out here, if you go way out here to 65,536, then on the line, it's going to say that you are 16 steps away from reaching 1. That is good. That's what we needed. Now, the other end of the spectrum, if I were to just assume that I could do n minus 1 divided by 3 over and over and over and over and over and over and over instead of times 2 over and over and over, then the graph is going to just rocket way up. But we already know that it's not going to rocket up like that. It's instead a combination of this with not just one of these, but 2 of them. So it's going to start sloping off to the right, but it's also going to start sloping off a little bit more than I am able to accurately calculate. And I'm sorry for the sloppiness of this. I'm working with paint because that's all I have at my disposal right now. But this line, and I've exaggerated the slope, it's not quite like this. It's more maybe like that. I don't remember exactly. But it does slope off to the right. It does not start going up like this anywhere. It curves off to the right, and this is an exaggeration. So instead of trying to narrow down exactly the ratio of evens to odds, because I don't think I can, I don't think it's even possible to narrow that down, what I did is I said, let me go way back here and make a tangent line. And a tangent line is just where a straight line touches a curve such that at that point on the curve you can tell what the slope is. And I went as far back as was reasonably feasible to still make sense, and the slope started trending past 4, past 5, past 5.4, but it was a decimal number, so I just went ahead and said, all right, let's just crank this up to a whole number and just be done with it. Let's call it a 6. Now, I wanted it to be absolutely for sure above everything on the lowest value line. So I raised it up so it wasn't touching it. And the way you do that is you add to the formula. So let's go back over here. And instead of saying the slope being something like 5.4 or 5.576 or whatever it was going to finally work its way down to, and I gave up on that part. I rounded it up to a whole number and said 6x. And then remember I added 1, so it brought it up above, so it wasn't touching, it wasn't tangent, it was for sure above every value on that slope. So plus 1. That's that's a good solid answer. However, I wasn't happy with it because as soon as I came up with this as my I'm done with this step equation, I realized something kind of interesting. If you take 3x plus 1 over here and you multiply it by 2, you get 6x plus 2. So in order to keep a sort of a nod to the original equation, I'm going to just leave this at 6x plus 2. Now, this number is going to be much bigger than what you will need to find the absolute distance that a small number is from reaching 1. But let's go ahead and test this out on 32. So we have, let me go ahead and add parentheses here so I can work with this. Copy that. We have 32, and we remember that 32 was an even minimum 5 steps from reaching 1. So 6 times 32, because I don't feel like doing that in my head, and I want you to see what it is 192 plus 2 equals 194. So that means that 32 is somewhere between 5 and 194 steps from reaching 1. And we know it's 5, but going into it, we're going to say we didn't know if the 32 was the highest number on that step or if it was the lowest number on that step. So that means it's one of these steps between the 5 and the 32. So let's go with 33 on this. 33, well, that would just be adding another 6 to all this. So that would be an even 200. Let me double check. Kind of tired. I don't want to make a mistake here. 6 times 33 equals 198 plus 2 is 200. Yes, good. So that means that the 33 is somewhere between 6 and 200 steps from reaching 1. So let's test the 33 here just to demonstrate whether or not it is, in fact, somewhere between 6 and 200 steps from reaching 1. So the only way to really do this, and this is the big problem with the Collatz conjecture, the only way to actually show is to run the number through the sieve. So we have 33 and then 100. Let me add commas here. Then we have 100, and then we have 50, and then we have 25, 8, 4, 2, and 1. So let's count. 33 is the root. It's 0 position. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 steps from reaching 1. Is 26 between 6 and 200? Why, yes it is. And this holds true for any number. It will fall between this log x divided by log 2 and 6x plus 1 range from reaching 1. Alright, so to wrap this up into as small a package as my ramblings can manage, we have demonstrated that odd numbers come from unique uh, points of origin. Even numbers come from unique points of origin. That a range exists for being able to test any given number, no matter whether you already know how far away it is or not. The test holds true for any value you plug in. And we have also gone over the fact that there is not going to be some vast field of a trivial loop way out here, because there are only going to be unique points of origin of any individual value found in this field. So either I have come up with a way of proving that the Collatz conjecture is true, or I have at the very least demonstrated some ways of looking at it that will help people to get introduced to the fun that is the Collatz conjecture, or at least get introduced to aspects of math they may not have been aware of. Like I went over in my first video, this is not just me getting this information out there. I also wanted to introduce people to a way of looking at just one aspect of math that they would probably not have been introduced to in some other way. So this is a sort of a lesson and a sort of I guess a presentation of one of my big hobbies. I would like to think that I have solved it. That would be lovely. But if I have, then please someone at least let me know before you publish a paper based on what I've shown here, because I don't know how to go about that process right now either. I just wanted to get this up and out because my computer is failing. That's why this is all haphazard, and that's why everything is very simply put together. And I wanted to get this up and out while my computer is still working. I'm sure that at least one of you is going to have some sort of question or comment. Please include it in the comment section. If I see the comment and can answer, I will. I will try to stay on top of this for as long as my computer lasts and continue putting up videos. But I wanted to get this project taken care of before I went back to the rest of my gaming videos. So for those of you who are just watching all this because you're used to seeing all of my gaming stuff, thank you for putting up with my math. And I hope that you've discovered something about math that piques your interest. But I promise I will do my best to stick to the games from now on. And I'll leave these at a very minimum of my uploads. But I'm going to go ahead and let all of you go, whether you're here for the math or just for my channel. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. If you like this, please give a like, share it, let other people find out about this. Say, hey, I found this dork who keeps rambling on about the Collatz conjecture and he seems to be onto something. Or here's this dork that is doing something stupid, and here, go laugh at him. I don't care. Just tell someone about it and see what they have to say. Uh, if you do want to, I guess, leave some sort of video response, I don't know how that works. I will try to watch it. Uh, if I, as long as my computer is working, I will try to stay on top of, at the very least, the comment section of and the responses to these videos. The rest of the videos I do try to stay on top of, but oh, this is a ramble. This is rambling. Okay. So thank you very much for watching. All of you, whether you're here for the math or you're here just because you're subscribers. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comments section below. I do apologize for the haphazardness and my rambling. You should know by now if you're a regular that that's me. I just ramble. I'm sorry. But if you're not used to it, it can be hard to swallow. I apologize. But hopefully I presented this in a way that makes sense. Hopefully I presented this in a way that was at least marginally entertaining, maybe some fun in there. And hopefully this can be expanded on by someone. Someone can get their hands on this and do something else with it. But even if they can't, I at least wanted to get this up before my computer dies. And my computer is failing. So leave any comments or questions or suggestions down there. I'll try to stay on top of them as long as I possibly can. If you like this video, and please give it a like, share it, subscribe if you want. I don't care, whatever you want to do. But thank you once again for watching. This is Thorn of Night, and I will talk to you later.